both Indian,
Yes.
but actually we're both South Indian.
Yeah, girl, I'm out here in these streets.
You look like the entire one half of my family.
But these extremists, as they say, they're not like us.
Certainly you could become the first Indian senator in U.S. history, which would be quite an accomplishment.
Knock wood.
I come to clap my hands. Put your hands together.
Is Kamala Harris black enough to secure the black vote? We continue to see black folks debate this point, but we definitely saw controversy spark over her recent rally in Georgia where Meg Thee Stallion made an appearance and used her platform to promote hotties for Harris. Now, we know black folks tend to vote for the Democrats, right? We see a growing number of black people who believe the Democrats are a farce, don't care about the black community, and use them for votes, but never do anything for the community once they're in office. Those black folks feel they can get better results by voting for the Republicans. Now, of course, you have the other side who thinks Republicans are trafficking in racism and dabbling with fascism and targeting neo-Nazi rhetoric to appeal to the white classical American who want to return to a white Jesus theocracy and implement Christian nationalism and basically regulate traditional family values, right? So of course we see these two competing sides. But one question I keep on seeing over and over again is whether or not Kamala is considered black enough. And that's what I want to explore a little bit in this video. Now, before I do, I want to briefly define the history and function of the term black or blackness in America since its inception, because I think that's important to consider when we are trying to define what it means to be black in America, right? First off, the concept of race really evolved with the expansion of the American and Western Empire. Blackness in America has historically been connected to the oppression and subjugation of Black or African people and their offspring. Black was connected to slavery and subjugation, while white was connected to power and resources. Black people were needed as an exploited labor class to secure America as a wealthy, powerful first world nation. Over time, trafficked Africans became the preferred labor class because many of them came with advanced knowledge in agriculture and farming, which was extremely beneficial to the developing nation of America at that time. So we see how laws over time were enacted to solidify Black people as a labor class. For example, Virginia enacted a law that connected slavery to Blackness by passing a law for hereditary slavery, which meant the status of the mother determined the status of the child. But basically, this law meant children of enslaved women would automatically share the legal status of slave and legitimize the sexual exploitation of Black women by white owners. In 1667, the religious limitations that previously existed were erased by another Virginia law. And this basically made it legal for enslaved people to remain in bondage for their entire life, whether or not they converted to Christianity or not. Laws like this helped to solidify the connection between Blackness and slavery in America. Bacon's Rebellion, which took place in 1676, where poor Africans, Native Americans, and Europeans worked together to fight against the elite white ruling class. That happened, but those efforts failed, and soon there were additional laws that were passed to help pacify poor European settlers, but segregate poor and link Blacks to perpetual labor. We see over decades different laws and cultural practices that linked Blackness to the laboring class. Racist pseudoscience and eugenics found ways to justify the subjugation and oppression of Black folks by claiming they were less than human, and these sentiments were heavily promoted throughout the centuries, to justify Black folks being enslaved. The Dred Scott case was a prime example. Dred Scott and his wife claimed freedom on the basis that they had resided in a free state and were therefore now free persons. The Supreme Court ruled that Scott could not bring a suit in federal court because Blacks were not citizens in the eyes of the U.S. Constitution. They were property. Basically, this judge declared that to be Black in America is to be an inferior being with no rights, and that slavery was for his benefit. Cultural and legal practices such as the one-drop rule, which was introduced to the census in the late 1800s, made it impossible for a person with Black or African blood to claim white. Again, this further solidified the cultural and class divide. Even after the civil rights era, we've seen institutional challenges that continue to impact Black communities, such as Jim Crow, redlining, no man of the house clause, voter suppression, and etc. We know Black applications tend to get paid less compared to other cultures. We know Black people tend to receive less loans. Black people are more likely to experience discrimination in the job market, and the list goes on. So basically, the history of Blackness, or to be Black in America legally, is quite dark. And it has had real world implications. Now, in spite of that, there has always been resistance by Black folks and attempts for Black people to have pride and a sense of well-being in spite of oppression. We saw this with the countless Black towns that were thriving, but eventually burned down or unfortunately drowned out by the government. But even with that, song, dance, or food, our vernacular, cultural expression, it gave Black folks a sense of pride in a volatile, hostile environment. And I believe many Black Americans today look at that as a source of pride. They look at their ability to survive in spite of all these different things as a source of pride. But my question is, what does Blackness mean today politically and socially? I'd like to know. Let me know down in the comment section. But now onto some lighter subjects. Let's look at what Black Twitter has to say about Kamala Harris and this whole topic around Blackness. It says, this is Kamala Harris at Howard, y'all, the most. We have all seen that haircut on a Black woman, we know. This one says she got the most generic, successful Black woman haircut of the 80s, 90s. Yeah, like everybody has seen that cut or has an auntie or somebody in their family that they know that has that haircut. Like, for real, for real. It says, I personally think she identifies as a Black woman, but probably got in touch with her Indian roots over the years. Since the founding of the USA to early 80s babies, mulattoes identified as Black. I never seen her date an Indian man. Really interesting. I remember when I was growing up, it was like everybody wanted to be mixed. Like, you didn't want to be like just purely Black. Like, but that's what I remember coming up. Like, nobody really wanted to be Black. Everybody wanted to be like a little mixed with something, unfortunately. So that was my experience, but it could be different for somebody else. It says Howard, the historic Jamaican Indian University. These folks were trolling. This one says she got another one here. Says, okay, VP Harris dad, grand and great grand. It says, who's Donald Harris, Kamala Harris' father and renowned Stanford professor, first Black scholar to be granted tenure in Stanford's Department of Economics. Okay, so she definitely comes from like what-to-do folks, for sure, for sure. Okay, she's beautiful. Another one says, anybody living in DC in the late 80s, early 90s is like, that's the sister, bruh. That got a lot of feedback. Dang, all these ones got a lot of feedback. This one says she looks like a president. This one says, bunch of white people in the comments deciding whether or not someone qualifies as Black. Okay, I know they put the little laughing emoji, but low-key, like, historically, Black people were historically, white folks really were the ones who actually legalized and determined what was Black. Like, they codified the law. So, as funny as it is, like, that's actually historically what's happened. This one says, and this is a copy of Kamala Harris' birth certificate, which proves she is not Black. See Kamala Harris' birth certificate below, which I have obtained. Nowhere on her birth certificate does it say that she is Black or African. So this person's like, I'm not buying it. I guess this is her birth certificate. I'm seeing, it says Jamaican, Caucasian. So that, I mean, that's her perspective. She's not Black because the dude is, I guess her dad is Jamaican and her mom, well, I don't understand. Her mom's identifying as Caucasian, but I thought she was Indian. But also, I don't think that's uncommon. Like, there are minorities who come over and they identify as Caucasian because, again, they want to get that status, y'all. And that might have been what her mama did. But we know her mama is Indian, at least as far as I know. Let's see. So that's a Black queen right there. Here's another one that says, this is Kamala Harris and her family photo celebrating her family heritage. What's your point? It says, this is a Kamala in her own words saying repeatedly that she is Indian. All right, so how about this? Kamala is whatever Kamala needs to be to get votes, and that was Trump's point. This is our community, first Indian American senator. Let's see.
Election cycle has, yeah, well, the Democratic Party for a very long time, not just this election cycle, has been doing a lot of active outreach around South Asians, around the API in general, and will continue to do it. I mean, what we know in particular when you're talking about the South Asian community, we're talking about the Indian community more specifically, it is a growing community in the United States in terms of its voting bloc, in terms of its participation, and I think the party knows that and knows that this is part of our collective community, and there needs to be outreach and inclusion.
And certainly you could become the first Indian senator in U.S. history, which would be quite an accomplishment.
Knock wood.
You could become the first Indian senator in U.S. history, which would be quite an accomplishment.
Knock wood.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so there she's identifying as Indian. Here when it says her dad is Afro-Jamaican, stop. Literally her father and grandmother. And so here's some pictures. So I don't have nothing else. Obviously it's split. She has the support of some major people, some major influencers, everything from celebrities to the Congressional Black Caucus. Like, she has their support. The Black Boule, the black elite, she has her support, and there's also people who just don't rock with her. I mean, that's just politics. There's always going to be division. But I mean, what do you think? Like, is she black enough? Does that even matter? Does that even matter? Is it more important that she just gets the job done? Is it more important the policies? What do you think? Let me know down in the comment section. Again, I do talk a little bit about this in my Patreon. If you want to get my point of view on the whole thing, be sure to join my Patreon and check out my hubby chat. And thank you so much for listening if you've gotten this far, and we'll talk later. Bye.